therapy session. Hello. Hello.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good, how are you?
Good.
Shutting my door.
I'm gonna do your survey thing really quick.
Okay.
Nothing, no changes?
No changes.
You're at home, right?
That's terrible. Yeah, I'm at home. Okay, that's better. I haven't figured out how I'm doing this yet at this place.
Look at it.
Alright, so I'll fill out my survey right now. How are you?
Good. I'm actually doing it for you.
Oh, okay, cool, thanks.
Makes it easier. Alright. I've gotten to the point where I just do it and just verify that nothing's changed. It just makes it a lot easier on you.
Well, you've probably done it 1,000 times a day, so you can
Oh, I know.
go through your shortcuts.
So how did it go with the couples thing?
It wasn't what I was expecting, so I was really disappointed, honestly.
And, so did you feel like you were heard or understood?
Well, basically, yeah, because it wasn't even a place where I got to speak. I thought that our intake was Monday and that our therapist would be Tina Wednesday, is how Jim explained it to me. But then on Monday, he said they canceled the appointment for Monday, and so we showed up Wednesday, assuming the reason why they canceled was because we were already established patients, so there was no need for an intake. But then Tina ended up being our intake, and now we've got to wait even longer to see Joanne, maybe, I think her name is.
Let me check, because if that's the case, I want to reach out to her.
Did you get a chance to reach out to Tina?
I did, but she never called me back. So I reached out to her first thing in the morning, Wednesday morning. And I said, hey, I'm the individual therapist for Crystal. I know you're meeting with them for couples today. I didn't know that was an intake, by the way. I thought that was your session.
That's what I was told.
And I said, I'd like to staff with you before you meet with them. She said, okay, I come into the office at 11. We can either do a Zoom meeting or I can call you. And I said, why don't you just call me between 11 and 12? Because I do training on Wednesdays, and I didn't have anything on my schedule between 11 and 12. And she said, okay, well then she never called. So I knew your appointment wasn't until like 5 or
6. Yeah.
6. Mm-hmm. I reached out to her again later and said, oh, hey, just call me anytime you have a chance before that session. She said, oh, okay, I've been extremely busy, and then I just never heard from her. So,
and I guess she's the staff supervisor for Chandler? Is that?
Yeah.
Is it possible that...
And I don't know her.
Right. Is it possible...
I've never actually met her, so.
Is it possible that she just didn't feel like taking us on and changed it to somebody else after meeting with us?
I doubt it. I doubt that's the case. Let me just check to see who you guys were scheduled with, though. Hang on one sec.
Okay.
So it looks like you're with Juliana.
That's what it was. I forgot the J name.
And it's on the 15th. So Tina did the intake.
I'm honestly really frustrated with the whole thing and confused, and personally not really sure where to go with this, because like you've said 1,000 times that you're here for me, and what's best for me, you're not really going to be biased towards the marriage if that's not what's best for me. And you're not going to also tell me to stay or go or anything like that. But the marriage counselor is going to be what's best for the marriage. And so the intake forms all were just assessing how we were doing, how bad or good we are, what level we're at, I guess. And then all her questions were basically, how likely do you see resolution, where are you at, blah, 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 you know. And I think based on our answers on the intake forms, she seemed concerned. But then after she got done talking to us, I don't know if she was just saying what she says to everybody, but she's like, I really do think there's a chance. You guys do have a lot of love for each other, and I can see that you guys are both interested in, you know, making this work, and you are willing to be honest about things, so I think this is really great. And then basically by the end of the session and end of the night, my head was spinning, confused. How the heck are we on this path of resolving our marriage right now? That's not where I'm at. I'm trying to just have a opportunity to talk about things that I need to talk about with a third party, which is what I've been trying to do for a couple of years now. Like, I just want someone to allow me to say what I need to say to my husband, and basically validate or reiterate that what I'm asking for is not ridiculous, or you know what I'm saying. And then maybe we can learn how to communicate better in a counseling session. And if that's not marriage counseling, maybe it's a different type of counseling. Maybe it's family counseling, or maybe it's a mediator through a court or something. I don't know what to do. I'm just like, I'm not in this space to take him back right now. I haven't even had a freaking breath away, you know?
Right, and don't feel pressure just because it's labeled as marriage counseling. Don't feel pressure to, resolve, like you have to resolve the marriage.
Well, I wasn't intimidated by it in the beginning, but it wasn't until the end that seems to be her spiel, you know. So that's like, okay, that means maybe there is a chance for us. And so I start going down the rabbit hole with the way she's talking and how Jim is thinking and how Jim is feeling, and then I'm over at Jim's house on Thursday morning, kissing and loving him and telling him that I believe in us and I think we can make it work. And then I'm spinning out of sync on Thursday, the 1st of April, and I'm just like, ah. So it's like, it's just not where I'm at, and I don't know how to communicate where I'm at because I'm not solid right now, you know?
Yeah, I know. I understand. And you're still, there's a little bit of the back and forth still, which is understandable.
Right.
From everything you've been through and what you've been struggling with, that's common. That's understandable that you're going to feel that way. But just be as honest as you can, during meet with Juliana. And I'll talk to her, I promise you. I will talk to her. She will reach out to me.
Do you know her?
I know of her. Like, I've spoken with her about other things before. With Tina's a supervisor, so I've communicated with Tina about other things, but not like client staffing type of things, or like administrative type of things. But with Juliana, I've communicated with her about staffing clients.
Can you give me an example or a kind of taste of what you might say to Juliana? So I don't know.
I would tell her, and keep in mind, like, she understands that whatever I say to her is from my perspective, based on your perspective, right? So she understands that. So it kind of goes without saying. Mm-hmm. I only have, one side of what's going on.
Right.
But I will tell her that I have had Jim in session a couple times. But basically what I think I would say to her is this, one of the issues has always been that, there was a lot of triggering going on in the marriage. And Crystal was just unable to find her own self-balance within that environment. And we started to realize through therapy that a lot of what was going on with her issues was environmental, based on marriage that had been unhealthy for a long time. So her leaving or separating from that situation was in an effort to find some self-balance. But also keeping in mind that there's a temptation for you of pretending everything's okay and going back. But you know, and I know that until you are better, any effort of going back is going to be damaging to your own individuality.
Right.
Not to say that there could never be a point where that would be the case. But if you do go back too early, just out of either feeling pressured or feeling that pull of that addiction, you know, you would be salvaging the marriage, but in the process sacrificing yourself. And so I just want her to be very mindful of that and conscious of that when she's working with you guys.
I haven't, yeah.
Just solving the marriage, even though that's her goal, is to help you find a healthy balance in the marriage. If it's at what cost? So I just want her to keep that in mind. What would the cost personally for Crystal be of salvaging the marriage?
And that's where I'm nervous, because I know my mirroring tends to do the agreeable thing. So if I've got Jim who's shooting for the marriage and the marriage counselor who's shooting for the marriage, and then I roll into answering questions like I did on Wednesday last week of, yeah, I want to get back together with him if these things are met. And so like, I'm trying to like assert myself, but at the same time, I feel like they only heard the latter part. I mean, you know, the first part, not the latter. And so, oh, okay, well, yeah, then that means that it's going good then, Crystal. Okay, yeah. I'm like, no, it's not going good. That's why I'm out. Like,
well, the other side of it too is she can meet with me anytime she wants throughout the process of the marriage counseling. So I had another client who was a military PTSD, very high anxiety, typical symptoms of PTSD, and he came into counseling with me. So him and his wife were in marriage counseling, and then the marriage counselor suggested individual counseling. So it was kind of the opposite of what's going on with you. He was in marriage first.
Well, Jim was in marriage first, and they recommended him the individual.
Okay. That happens. And so he told me from the beginning, I have no interest in resolving my marriage. That in fact, I really want to get a divorce. And I was like, okay. I'm like, well, it's not my role to try to salvage your marriage. My goal is your well-being. And if that includes you being single, then that includes you being single. You know, whatever. We're not going to focus on your marriage at all. But with PTSD, one of the symptoms of PTSD is you start to feel detached from the people that are close to you. That's kind of common. So in the back of my mind, I kind of knew if we could resolve the PTSD, he may start to gain a closer relationship with his wife. And he was very honest through the whole thing, said she's done nothing wrong. Like, she's a great person. I just don't feel close to her anymore. Right? So I didn't focus on the marriage at all. And in fact, throughout the course of my treatment with him, we took him out of marriage counseling. Because the marriage counselor was like, he's not ready because he doesn't want this relationship at all. And you kind of have to have two people that are wanting the same thing.
Right. And when Jim told me he signed us up for marriage counseling, it made me mad because I asked him to do that back in January as my one last effort to see how serious he was at salvaging this relationship. And he kept dragging his feet about it. And on February 4th, when he was all awoken and everything, and he wanted me to listen to him, and I'm all, wait. I've been asking you to listen to me for 6 months or longer, and you aren't ready for that. So are you ready to do this marriage counseling thing? So I asked him again in February. And it wasn't until I had physically left that he got us an appointment. And I'm like, why? I'm gone. And he thinks that's what we need. I go, maybe down the road. But then once I was telling you, like, I don't know how to bring up things to him that I need to talk to him about without me fawning to him or agreeing with him or being scared to say anything or just giving away the farm. Like, money has been an issue in my brain because I'm still saving him in a way that I can't be affording to do. I got to take care of myself now, and I can't believe I'm still doing stuff like that. So it's like I feel like this that's what I was hoping that this could be, was just this opportunity to talk to someone and have them help me talk to him. But I don't think that's what it's going to be.
Well, I'll talk to her about that.
Okay.
But yeah, so she'll listen to me. And my goal isn't to get her to be on sides or anything, but just to get her to see your perspective going into it.
Right, letting her know that I might have a tendency to, I don't know, I feel like I'm not as confident or loud when I've got someone who has no idea anything about me, and Jim's like a puppy dog and I can't hurt his feelings type of things, or if I do, then I look like this witch, that had to be honest and blunt about. So I feel like my tactfulness is not quite where it needs to be without looking like the Goliath, or the, what do you call it, the gladiator versus the chess player.
Just know, Crystal, that getting back into the marriage and being agreeable like that is only going to be damaging if it's done insincerely. So if, in other words, if you're doing that, and I get that, because I tend to be that way sometimes too, where you just kind of become all things to all people. You know what I mean? I understand that, because it's easier for one.
Yeah.
And it's less confrontive, and it's just, sometimes it's the easier way to just get through it. But if anytime for you, it could end up being damaging to you, right? I mean, in other words, here's the thing. It sounds selfish, but each one of you has to be priority individually. It takes two healthy people to make a healthy marriage. So if the marriage is salvaged with two unhealthy people, I mean, what chances does that give the marriage of the longer?
Right.
Right? So you and Jim have to be priorities apart from the marriage. And you can even tell her that, like we're going through a process where we're focusing on ourselves, trying to balance ourselves and become healthy so that we can have a shot at a healthy marriage. But my concern is coming right back into the marriage before either one of us are ready and going back to old behaviors right away. And that would be my concern for you.
Well, and I think that sounds exactly right in the front of it, But even behind that, what does that look like? And to Jim, if I'm giving him this possibility of us coming back together, he wants to be able to keep tabs on me in some small way. So I think right after that session, or intake, or whatever they called it, I think I sat with it for like 2 or 3 hours, and then I sincerely came up with a good idea. And my fawning can be very sincere, because it feels good to be accommodating. It feels good to do what he wants me to do. And I said, I have an idea. And he says, what's that? And I said, what if on the Thursdays that we're not meeting with, what's her name? Juliana? Yeah. On the Thursdays we're not meeting with Juliana, what if we have a dinner with the 4 of us so we can practice healthy communication and talk about the kids and have the 4 of us have dinner, blah, blah, blah. And if for any reason things start to get escalated or things get upset, I reserve the right to leave without any questions, without having to say anything, without having to threaten to leave or anything like that. I just get to leave. And Brooklyn has been very, very vocal about not going over to her dad's house anymore, and Matthew has too. So I basically have gotten grounded from both of them, and that's a very mature, healthy thing that my kids have made me promise to do. But when I told that idea to Brooklyn, she was like, that could work as long as there's no yelling, and you guys have to promise there's no yelling, and you have to leave if it starts to get bad. And I go, okay, that sounds good. And I told Jim, and Jim liked that idea. And he says, what about if we end up going weekly on those therapy sessions instead of every other week? And I'm like, well, then maybe we can incorporate it on a different night, having sessions, and we can move up to having it more than once a week. And I was envisioning us getting back together possibly down the road, and this is how we do it. And then it wasn't until April 1st, the next day, when I went and tried showing him love and showing him that we can do this and all this. I'm like even I'm trying to keep my tabs on him in a way, right? And making sure that he's okay with this situation right now. he then starts questioning me about the time that I went swimming by myself and wanted to know what I was wearing. And instantly I lied and told him what he wanted to hear because that felt good to give him what he wanted so he wouldn't get upset. And then I hurried and left, and I was so mad at myself for doing the thing again. And I called him and I said, I got to tell you the truth. I didn't swim with a t-shirt on. I swam with the bikini on, and I am not ashamed of it. But I can't believe I feel like I need to lie to you still to keep you from the truth. You need to deal with it however you need to deal with it, but I can't keep the truth from you anymore. This isn't going to work. And so that started a whole new spiraling of, do I really want to get back together with him? Or do I just want to get my validation from him and get my validation from his parents and get validation that I'm a good person and that I didn't just give up on the marriage? And am I really wanting to get back together with him, or am I just not wanting to be the bad guy in his life because that's how they are all seeing me right now? And so I'm doing all these good person things. Do you know what I'm saying? So I even had the idea to go to his parents' house this weekend for Easter, this past weekend, so that I could face his parents and we could have this, basically this confrontation, because the last time there was anything to do with me and his mom and was when he was locked up and she was going to call the cops on me. And I have had this anxiety about seeing her again or confronting her or talking to her or having any sort of communication with her. And so I thought that I needed to just bite the bullet and go talk to her. But then again, that's me seeking validation from someone I don't even need validation from. I just don't want to be the bad guy in anybody's eyes. I don't want to be the one that they're talking bad about. I want to kind of control that narrative in a way. Like, I had a lot of soul searching to figure out why I was doing and spinning the way I was spinning, because it was completely opposite in the direction that I want to be in. And once I finally found my center again, I'm like, I'm ready to own the truth that even if Jim changes 1,000%, I don't think I want to go back to him because I can't trust him anymore. Like, I don't even know if I want to get that trust back. He's not the type of person that I can see myself being with, because he's got so many red flags and so many skeletons in his closet and so many things that he has never been honest about that he didn't have to lie about. So it's like, I don't want to be the one, I don't want to be waiting around for the love that I feel like I want in my life just because he's got so many issues that I enabled for so long, you know?
Right. No, that makes total sense. We gotta figure out what it is that causes that swing between those two emotions.
I think what it was is I didn't like the way he talked about me in that intake. The narrative, he said, because she wanted both of our opinions, and when it came turn to him, he said something like, I still can't believe that she did what she did. Her parents put her through the same thing, and now she's doing that to our kids. And I'm all, wait a sec. And I wanted to say something, but this wasn't a therapy session, she said, you know. And it just had me seething mad that I was being painted as this person that I'm not doing right by my kids, you know. And I'm all, okay, first of all, I know that what we were doing in the house all the time, every weekend, whether we're ignoring the kids, ignoring each other, or fighting, or having this awkward tension, sometimes we're all scared of dad's whatever, and sometimes we're okay, but like, if we were having so many issues, my kids were adopting codependent behaviors to keep dad from being upset.
Yeah.
My kids were resenting me for not standing up to him or telling him the truth on things. And it's like, I felt like I wasn't as healthiest mom that I could be. So I felt the best thing for me and my kids was to leave. And that was the only reason why I made the decision, was because my kids helped me see that.
Yeah.
So once that narrative started going, and I'm starting to like wanting to control the narrative, it sounds terrible when I say it that way, but it's true. I didn't want that story to be in his head because that's not the truth. So I felt like I needed to jump through the hoops to show him the truth, that this is why I'm doing this. And he's not ready to look at his stuff in a harsh way that makes him see it my way. So I need to be this woman that is willing to wait for him to figure it out. And I'm like, why do I have to wait for him? Because I married him and said my vows, and that's what I told him while he was in the behavioral center. Yeah, I did tell him that I'm leaving, and I told him that I would stand by his side. So I felt that that was what I had to say. That's what I believed. It's what I believed at the time. But I also felt like that's what I had to say for self-preservation, so that I wasn't in danger when he got out, you know? And so like, now that he's out and he's sulking every time I see him and he's feeling sorry for himself every time I talk to him on the phone, I'm like trying to put this positive spin on what I'm doing by saying what he wants to hear about it. And it's like, I really just want an opportunity to be honest with him without falling into that hole of trying to control how he's going to respond.
Yeah.
That's the codependent thing.
You need to go into this couples therapy thing, with the attitude that you're going to be honest and you're going to be heard. And I'm going to tell you right now, it doesn't matter what the therapist thinks. So don't even worry about what she thinks. That doesn't make any difference. Because if you're not honest, then the whole process is tainted to begin with, right? So you really have to go into it just with the attitude, this is for me. This is for me to speak my truth, to be honest. I don't care what she thinks or what she says. I'm not going to go in playing the game and, conforming to what I feel like the room wants to hear.
And if that's the kind of question she asks, or the way she tries to ask, you know how people can ask questions to kind of set it up for a right or wrong answer?
No.
Like, she wanted to know what I liked about the marriage. And I struggled to find an honest thing to say without saying something negative. And I flat out said, well, I'm just going to say it, and it may not convince you. Oh, don't, it's not a therapy session. And, it's like she thought I was going to go off or something. And I go, well, I'm just going to say it this way. His parents like to sweep things under the rug and not address things head on. But my husband and I always had a good communication back and forth. We always talked about the problem. And we could talk about the problem for 3 or 4 or 5 hours, and I really did appreciate that, because we took things on and we didn't sweep it under the rug.
Yeah.
But what I really wanted to say was, even though we did that, he always ended up convincing me that he was right and I was wrong after 5 hours of fighting. So I had to stop doing those conversations, so I don't have that anymore, because I don't like those things about the marriage. I don't like talking about things if it means that I'm always going to be wrong.
Yeah, I understand that. And I think, too, part of what is attractive towards the marriage is just the familiarity and the history there. Okay, we've been together for this long. Do I really want to give up on this? That's always a pull, like you feel this responsibility. Like that's really all I like about it, is that it's familiar. But I don't want to continue to sacrifice everything else for that. And so, it just being easy to stay.
Right, and I think when I was there, I definitely identified with that statement mostly while I was there, because thinking about being on my own was the scariest concept to me in the world.
Yeah.
And now that I'm here, there's so much excitement and freedom and newness and possibility, and I could dream about things, and I can do things I dream about, and all the responsibility of what the house looks like lands on me, and I don't have anybody to blame but myself. And there's so much of my past self that I don't get to bring into this home, because my past self was so busy feeling like a victim in that place, where here I get to own it and feel empowered. And so when I go back to his place, I really am more or less kicking myself for staying as long as I did and not getting out sooner. But I'm working on that too, because I realized that I needed as much time as I needed to get ready to leave.
Yeah, and I've told you this before, but it really fits with your situation. You talk a lot about the addiction to validation, if you want to call it that.
Mm-hmm.
I think, there's tremendous power in not caring. When you don't care what other people think about you, it puts you in a very strong position. And just understand, I'm not trying to insinuate that this is about a power struggle, and if you're on top, you win. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying there's a maybe power is not the right word. Maybe it's freedom. There's a lot of freedom in finding a way to not care what other people think.
It's a level of growth when you are in high school and you wear the right outfit, wear the right shoes, have the right backpack, and the kids still don't like you, or they still don't hang out with you. Then you realize, what did I do all this for?
Right.
And then just be yourself, and then you've got good friends and quality friends, and you enjoy your day, and it's not spent trying to jump through hoops to get people to like you. It's that same concept. So I did feel really empowered within myself because I wasn't relying on other people's expectations to feel good about myself. I was at my mom's house. It was hard for me though, because I was at my mom's house and I asked my mom to take the kids to see their grandparents. Jim was over there. And she says, actually, that's a good idea, because if you go, you'll be tempted to go inside, or they'll be tempted to come out and talk to you, or it just becomes muddy. So my mom was more than happy to take the kids over there, and she comes back and she's wanting to cheer me up or whatever, and I'm just like, I feel like I should be over there. This is really weird. I feel like I should be over there with my family. I should be over there making nice. I should be over there being the cute, funny, okay, yeah, I did move out, haha, but that's because he's a little crazy or something. Like I wanted to make light of it, but let him know I still love him. Let them know that I still love him so that they can give me the validation that I was seeking, And I'm just like, okay, so they're probably saying this, they're probably saying that, they're probably, okay, radical acceptance, let them say it. I'm going to be unapologetically me, and I'm going to go back to my apartment and focus on something that doesn't put me down about it. And I did feel empowered with that.
Like look at it this way. Like I remember high school, and I remember caring so much about fitting in and being a certain type of person and the friends I had. Now that I'm an adult and I look back on that, there's part of me that would love to go back to high school, because I would go into it not giving a shit what people thought. And it would be so empowering and free, And you almost have to try to tap caring person, but just like, I like the way you put it, just unapologetically you. Being confident in who you are, being okay with who you are, and not making the apologies for who you are. And if you can go into the marriage counseling that way too, like, I don't give a crap what the therapist thinks. I don't care what Jim thinks. I'm going to speak my truth, and if they don't like it, then screw them. Who cares? Right. Now, what's the worst that's going to happen? The worst that's going to happen is she'll be like, well, I don't know if you're ready for marriage counseling. Okay, whatever. Right. So what? Who cares? You got to, if you can tap it. But keeping in mind, you got to have some balance. Like, you don't want to be a total, I don't care about anything.
Right, and that's where I just naturally am compassionate to people. Yeah. Where I don't think I come across as this, I don't give a fuck, but I think behind it, yeah, if she said, I'm not ready for marriage counseling, I'd be like, I'm probably not, which is what I said all along. And that was me speaking my truth. And if I don't know, should I say that to Jim, that I don't think I'm even ready for marriage counseling? Or should I just keep going through it so I can...
It doesn't matter. So let me give you an example. So our next door neighbors, I was thinking about this the other day. Our next door neighbors are horrible. Like, from the moment we moved in here, they've bitched and complained about everything. Like, from the moment I pulled the moving truck up, she ran out of the house screaming, "You can't park that in front of my house." And I was just pulling it up so I could back it into my driveway, But I'm usually the type of person who gives people the benefit of the doubt. So, like, we honestly tried to teach people, they've complained about our dogs barking, like, over and over and over and over. Well, it used to freak us out, stress us out. So anytime the dogs would make any little sound, we're like, oh, let's get the dogs in, let's get the dogs in. And sort of realizing our life was being controlled by these people. Well, a couple weeks ago, my 3-year-old grandson was out in the backyard, and he has Nerf guns. Okay? He's all into Nerf guns. Well, he shot a Nerf gun, one of the bullets went over the fence, and I guess it went into their pool. Well, I wasn't home, I was at work, but they came out and they stood up on these chairs, and my wife was out in the backyard, and they started screaming and yelling at her because he shot a Nerf bullet, over the fence into their pool. And my wife, fought back. She was like, "You have been horrible since you moved in. We don't care what you think. And we're not going to walk on eggshells." And since then, we've adopted that, like, who cares what they think? Right. What are they going to do?
They're going to call the cops about a Nerf bullet?
Right, yeah. And so, ever since then, there has been, like, a freedom of, like, who cares? Like, I could care less what they think.
And if they start getting vindictive and breaking the law to make you hate living there or something, then that's a whole new level of something, right?
Right, but there is a sense of freedom in just not being a jerk, but just, I don't care. It doesn't matter. Who cares? You can be the way you want, and we're still going to live our lives. And we're not going to be purposely mean, but we're also not going to care.
Yeah.
It is empowering, and you almost sometimes have to be pushed into that perspective. We've talked about how, different perspectives, usually there's an aha moment of like, you know what? It doesn't matter. Who cares? And that's where I could see you getting eventually to just like, hey, I am who I am. I'm an amazing person. Yeah, I've got some things to work on. We all do, right? And you're doing it. You're doing an amazing job. And who cares? If other people don't like it or don't see it, then whatever.
Right.
But if you could just, and it's a balance, it's finding that kind of a balance to where obviously you care about a lot of things, and there are many things that are worth caring about. But it's almost about finding what's not worth caring about. If it's becoming damaging to you because you care too much, you've got to find that balance of just whatever.
Yeah, I don't want to be intimidated into not letting my dogs bark kind of thing. It's like,
yeah.
Hold on. Yeah, it's probably a very good way of looking at it, because I know that me and Jim were so enmeshed and at the hip and entangled in our everyday experiences. So my plan this past weekend was to go to Tucson to spend the Easter with my brother. And I told Jim that I was thinking about going Saturday night again, like I did a month ago when he got upset. And he doesn't like me going at night. And that way I could spend the night, have Easter morning with my brother, and then he could have Easter with his parents. And Jim had the nerve to say, do you want us to go together down to Tucson as a family? I'd like to make amends with your brother, blah, 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 kind of attitude. And I'm not ready for that. First of all, I'm not even close to telling my family that there's this possibility that Jim is in my future, because they're also proud of me that I'm putting him in my rearview mirror. They thought that I should have done that years ago. And so I haven't completely taken Jim in the future off the table yet, because I do have such a connection, love to him, but I can't decipher if that's love or attachment or addiction or familiarity or all of the above.
The love, and the very root of love is familiarity.
Okay, that's good.
That's the draw to love, and it's been proven that people that are familiar to us are the ones we're most likely to fall in love with.
Ah.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I've heard that, because everybody's told me that I fell in love with my dad.
Mm-hmm. Right, and that's why that tends to happen quite often, because it's familiar to us.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like that, those deja vu moments where you're like, oh, I've been here before, I've done this before, or whatever, but there's an attraction almost to that.
That's good to know. Well, I asked my brother before I told Jim yes or no about going together. I said, would you be interested in entertaining the idea of Jim coming down with me and the kids for Easter? He wants to make amends. Now, if my brother was in a space where he wanted to hear this from Jim, I could imagine him saying yes. I'd like to talk to him also, or I'd like to hear what he has to say. But my brother was pretty quick and pretty firm about his boundaries and said, is it okay that I say no, Crystal? I'm just not really interested in being a part of that. And I appreciated him for not telling me what I wanted to hear or being him-haw about it. He was flat out, I don't really want to, Crystal. And so that made up my mind for me, because I don't want to be pushing my husband on others who he's also upset and hurt, you know what I'm saying? I did for years. Every time they wanted to see me, they had to deal with Jim, because that was the only way to get me, was because Jim was coming along, And so I never told Jim yes or no. I actually completely ignored the question. And I didn't tell Jim if I was coming or when I was coming or anything about seeing his parents. Because even though that was my idea, I never finalized that plan. And the whole time I'm thinking, if me and Jim were talking every day, that question would come up, and then I would flow into an agreement of some sort. And if me and Jim were talking every day, I'd feel obligated to do it the way he wants to do it. But because I was only text messaging him and purposely keeping myself busy so I wouldn't have an opportunity to call him and talk to him, or he couldn't call me and talk to me, I ended up skating through Friday, Saturday, Sunday without seeing him, without talking to him on the phone. It was just text message, and I just said, the kids will be at your mom's house by 3 o'clock. And that's pretty much all I said, and that was so empowering to me because I didn't have to do it his way or fall into doing it his way.
Yeah. So if I were to ask you a question, give me an answer to this like as quickly as you can without thinking about it.
Okay.
All right. Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Still single, working on my degree. Probably not with the city. I don't want to work for the city anymore.
Usually the quickest answers are the most honest. Right? And they're the most, what's the opposite of being split? Solid, singular-minded, I don't know, but like...
So, solid, yeah, like whole. Yeah, and I also like seeing it as crystal clear. I like to say that.
Well, it has her name.
Right. I've been calling it muddy, and then I'm all, well, what do I want if I don't want muddy? I want to be clear, dang it. I want to be crystal clear. And you know what's funny? In 5 years, my son will be 18, almost 19, and my daughter will be almost 18. So it's like, I really want these last few years of my time with their youth before they grow on to adulthood. I want it to be focused on them and giving them every opportunity to connect with me in a way that helps them grow into mature, capable young people. Not me avoiding them and avoiding their dad and avoiding... Like, I don't want to be this dating mom either for the next 5 years. I don't want to be dating. That's not my thing right now. You know what I'm saying?
Well, sometimes when we split a lot, it's a battle between, and I'm sure you've heard, you know enough about therapy, you've heard this, but it's a battle between the subconscious mind and the conscious mind. Sometimes it's a battle between the child, the inner child, and the adult's self-concept, right? So there's a disconnect sometimes between the two.
I think
usually, I'm not a psychoanalyst or anything like that, but ways to get a clue as to what the subconscious mind is thinking. One is through dreams. Many times we'll have dreams, and it's not the conscious mind, it's the subconscious mind. That's why we have dreams that we're like, what the hell was that all about? Like, because it's not something we would ever consciously think about. But sometimes our dreams are, depending on what stage of sleep we're in. But another way is through the, have you ever heard of free association?
What association?
Free association.
That's just through writing and writing and writing, right?
That's one way, yeah. And you usually would write with your non-dominant hand. So, kind of like a child would. It puts you in that childlike mode when you're writing with a hand you're not familiar with. And writing without thinking about it, without consciously trying to map out what you're saying and saying it in the perfect way and saying it. Sometimes we subconsciously are wanting to write it thinking maybe someone else will read it and it's got to be really good. Just writing only for you, first things that come to your mind without even thinking about it or considering. Another free association is kind of like the ink blot thing that you see in the old psychology things. Like, what's the first thing that comes to your mind when I show you this ink blot? And usually when we blurt something out without considering it, it gives us kind of a clue as to what the subconscious mind is thinking. The conscious mind is the mind where we sit there and ruminate over it and think about it and try to make the right decision.
I think that's also why my mind likes to dissociate, is because it doesn't give a chance to have too much thought. And then when I come out of it, I've pretty much done what I want to do, and I didn't even realize I wanted to do it. Like, I went swimming and realized I went swimming without my t-shirt on top, and I'm like, whoa, I can't believe I did that. And like, I have such a disconnect between what Jim would really want me to do, or what I can't believe I'm doing this, and like, I'm just naturally falling into these things that I keep doing, and I'm just like, holy cow, because my brain is just like, let's just do this now. Oh, that sounds like fun. We can do this because we don't give a crap,
Well, it's almost like your subconscious mind is having a little more free reign than it ever did before.
Oh yeah, I told you about my spending problem.
Yes.
Yeah, I've gotten better at it, but I realized I've messed up really badly. I got money in the bank the middle of last month in March, and I thought it was my tax return. And then Jim got antsy and inquisitive and started asking me if I got the stimulus. And I'm all, no, I didn't. And then everybody that day started saying they got the stimulus that day. And I'm like, oh, I guess I did. It says IRS something, blah, blah, blah. And so I assumed that my taxes were still on the way because they were about the same dollar amount, but they weren't exactly the same. And I was so confused for like two and a half weeks, wondering where my refund check was at. And then I double checked last night and I found out that I didn't get the stimulus. I don't know if I'm going to get the stimulus. If I am going to get the stimulus, I don't know when it's coming. And so I pretty much have spent my entire refund check assuming I was getting it soon. Like,
Right.
I thought that, I mean, I had plans on what I was going to do with that refund check. So everything that I did with the stimulus was extra.
Right.
But I didn't have the stimulus, so basically all the extra stuff I did with the I'm sick to my stomach about it because I was going to have rent paid for a couple of months while I figure stuff out before having to get a second job.
Yeah.
Nope, now I don't have that anymore, and I got to go get a second job all of a sudden.
Maybe you'll still get the stimulus stuff.
I hope so. I don't even know what that's about. I'm so confused.
So yeah, you just and we'll talk tomorrow night, but I do believe that I don't know. Like, do you feel like you're because there is that part of you you've tapped into that where you're just unapologetically you, but then there's another part of you that wants the validation from other people. Can you identify which? If I asked you, is this your inner child? Which would your inner child fall? Which side would your inner child fall on with that? Is it the inner child that seeks the validation?
I basically have identified two noodles being inner children.
Okay.
I have the programmed inner child that I call Gold Noodle, who was programmed to be the golden child, the good kid, the one that did everything everybody wanted her to do. And then I have the mint noodle that I have been saying who's been trying to reach me for years by speaking through poetry and song and trying to get me, my conscious to tap into the subconscious of what I was truly feeling about certain situations. Which is why I dyed my hair mint and painted my walls mint and once I identified her to a color, everything just became all about her, and I just wanted to keep hearing more about my true self and what was my true self really wanting in the situation. So I had my heart-to-heart with her this past weekend, and we basically have agreed that even if Jim magically fixes himself in 3 weeks, 6 months, a year, 3 years, 5 years, there is so much history that we had to endure that I'd rather have a whole new life without him than to even consider going back to him, because I already know what that's about. That familiarity might be comfortable or feel like love, but I think I'm more excited about my future without him than I am trying to incorporate him into my future somehow.
That's valid to feel that way. There's nothing wrong with that either, Crystal.
Yeah.
Don't feel guilty for that.
I think I just feel guilty because I have a hard time being honest with him about it. But I'm really glad that I know that about myself, because it's taken me a month of sitting with this newness and being muddy before I could get clear, you know?
Yeah, but part of the reason you have a hard time being honest with him is because of him.
Right.
And the way he reacts to those types of things. That's part of the problem that got you here to begin with, is adjusting your personality to accommodate him.
Right, and he come
That's where that unapologetically you comes in. I mean, sometimes you just have to make a decision. You know what? I'm not going to consider how he's going to handle this because I know he's not going to handle it well. And I can't adjust it or dumb it down or sugarcoat it for him.
Right.
So,
And I've done a lot of that, but there's been pockets of sprinkling hope towards him.
Yeah.
Because I don't want him to be a bum on the log for my kids. I don't want him to be unhealthy in front of my kids. I don't want him to not work and not be able to pay electric and water. Like, I want him to ride the wave, but I don't think he's hit rock bottom enough to pick himself up yet. So I just got to remember that it's not my job to help him.
No, it's not. It definitely isn't. He's going to have to get to the point where he is responsible for his own emotions and actions.
Okay, yeah, we can talk about that more tomorrow because I got more questions about that.
Okay. All right, it was good to see you. And I'm going to reach out. I already looked up Juliana's information while I was talking to you earlier, so I'll send her a message, set up a time. Got about 10 days. So.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a good idea. I feel like I need to. I don't know. Maybe it is.
I can wait until tomorrow.
Okay, I'll talk to you later.
We'll talk about it tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay?
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Well, I gotta go take my daughter back to her dad's house. She walked here from school today, even though it's her dad's day. And she's out there playing the Sims game because we just bought it. And she hadn't had a chance to play it yet. I'm figuring it out. And I'm figuring it out without the validation from a bunch of people. But I am getting validation once in a while from a few people. All right, I'll talk to y'all later. Thanks for watching. Thanks for being there with me. Thanks for talking to me. Or heck, thanks for not watching. Thanks for not being there for me. Thanks for letting me figure this out on my own so that I'm not thinking that you're the reason why I'm changing. I'm changing because I'm changing for me. All right, talk to you later. Bye.